Comparison is a trap that we all fall into. And we can pretend that we're angels and we don't look at the people that do similar things to us, but that's not the case. We are aware of people who do similar things. Maybe they're in the same industry. Maybe they have a product that's similar to what we have. Or maybe we are a personal figure showing up. We have a book or a podcast. We're an entertainer. There are other people that are in a similar boat. How do we not get trapped in the comparison problem? Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I am your host, Samantha Fackler, business mentor and brand strategist. This show is about what it takes to build something in public, a business, a body of work, a brand, or a creative project so that you reach the right people. After 14 years in brand and marketing, I've seen so much confusing advice out there that tells you either need pure systems and rigid frameworks or intuition and manifestation vibes. And from my experience working with over 100 companies and even more clients, I find that growth is somewhere in the middle. So here we talk about the real choices of creating, showing up, and attracting the people that your work is meant for. And right now, I am very pregnant while running my company, so that journey will probably make its way into the show too. I'm glad you're here, and let's get into it. What I see with people all the time is that they come to me and they're like, I'm trying to figure out, how do I stand out? I'm trying to figure out my brand. I'm trying to figure out my marketing because it's not feeling right. And what I often see is that they are unconsciously comparing themselves to the people around them. And when they do that, they end up actually mimicking those people. So we don't always intentionally do that, but when we're taking in the people in our same industry who could be viewed as competitors or near competitors, we can fall into that trap. And what happens when we fall into that is that it actually costs us our brand. It costs us the opportunity to reach people, because the truth of the matter that I'm going to come back to again and again in this episode is that every single entrepreneur in business is unique. I mean, as unique as a fingerprint. And I say that all the time to my clients. I say it all the time in branding work too. You need to understand why you're different and then be able to consistently show up with that unique positioning. Because without that, you do tend to blend in. And sometimes we are just not even aware of how much we're blending in, because it does feel safe. And when we think about the comparison trap, there's a psychological element here, right? There's both the safety, because you see things work for other people, so then you try to mimic them in your own way. But oftentimes you're just kind of falling in line with the saturated narratives, with the things that people have already heard. So then people don't really pay attention. You don't stand out. Or there's the competitive side, right? So the first side, there's something about feeling safe in that. But the second side, the competitive side, is one that has more of a masculine energy. It says, ooh, this person's doing XYZ, and they're saying this thing in this way. And I need to compete. I need to be better. I need to outperform. And so that energy is very different. And so when we talk about comparison, I find that they fall in one of those two camps. But the problem underneath all this, again, is that you are unique. And that is worth discovering and understanding. How are you unique? Because it's really hard to understand when you are the subject. For example, if I were to ask my dog right next to me how she's unique, she really wouldn't know what to say if she did speak English. Because I'm the one who sees dogs all the time. Years before she was born, I've looked at dogs and thought about, maybe different dogs that I might have one day. And then suddenly she appeared and I'm like, oh my gosh, this gem of a being. She's a rescue and she is like a mystery dog. No one can really figure out what breed she is because she's a total mix. And she has an amazing personality and she's obedient and all this stuff, right? But she might not be able to recognize those things because she is the subject. And I find with entrepreneurs, it's the exact same thing. We often don't know those qualities. So even if we're self-aware, it actually requires us to look outside of ourselves to find people, to find clients, feedback from people who help us see what makes us different. And why I talk about all of this is because I know we talk a lot about like inner work and emotions and self-awareness on this podcast, self-trust, but actually growing something meaningful requires us to know these parts. It requires us to let go of comparison. Because whether we're comparing ourselves to stay safe or we're comparing ourselves and getting really competitive, we're keeping ourselves small. And I see it all the time. And I have been there myself. I have fallen into both of those. When I first started as an entrepreneur, I posted all sorts of things because I thought that they would fall in line with what was already being shared. I tried to make them unique in how they looked or felt or sounded. But what I found is that actually what I was sharing was getting completely lost. And then I felt myself get competitive after about a year or two because I was like, I'm really good at what I do. And there are people less talented and less skilled making money off of clients who are not having a good experience. And they have larger followings, they have more revenue, they ultimately have more successful businesses. And I get so upset. I'd get competitive. I'd feel that masculine fire of what am I going to do to try and outperform these people? And yes, there was jealousy there. Yes, there was, envy of wanting what these people had. But when I understood, I need to back up for a sec. I actually don't want the businesses that these people have. Because when I tune in energetically to these people, I know that they are stressed and they are stretched thin underneath a very successful business. So I saw these, 7-figure, 8-figure coaches who were doing something similar to me, but not quite the exact same. And I saw them have 20, 30-person teams. And I thought about it and I was like, I actually don't want that big of a team. Do you know how much overhead and emotional management that requires? I actually want a business that is very successful, but has a small team of people that feel like a family, of people that I can invest in, who I want to grow with me over a very long period of time. When you have a team of 20 or 30, and I know this from my experience working with startups of all different sizes, you start to get into this territory where there is going to be turnover from time to time. And you need more resources to manage a team of 20 to 30. It's a serious, different level. And of course, you can have a serious, successful business with a smaller team. That's what I wanted. So when I was able to understand the emotions present when I was falling into comparison, whether it was seeking safety or it was getting competitive, maybe a little jealous, right? When I came back to myself and I processed those emotions, I realized the desire underneath was just to simply be recognized for my work, to attract the right clients in, to sell products that I believe in because they work and they provide true transformation. They are not just things that I'm selling to make money. That's icky to me and I don't like it. And so getting really clear on those things, that's what helped me realign. And when I say realign, it means I took a step back and I thought, okay, Samantha, what makes you different? Let's focus on that. Let's stop looking at the people around you. Let's stop looking at other coaches, other podcast hosts, other people that are in branded marketing, because you just tend to get upset. You disagree with what they're saying. You find where you diverge. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because then you start to understand, oh, these are actually the narratives I care about. But I need to take a step back and focus on my business and see, okay, what makes me that unique snowflake, right? Every snowflake is unique and different. Every single personal brand business is also a snowflake. So what is your unique snowflake pattern? Maybe that's just going to be a term that we start using on the show. What does your snowflake look like? So, of course, I went out and I talked to clients and I really started to take note and see patterns of feedback that I have received as a speaker, as someone who shows up. And then I started to draw inspiration from things outside of my industry. And this is something that I teach in branding all the time. Because when I teach branding, right, what we're doing is we're not creating some sort of fake persona or templatized business facade. No, 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 no. When I talk about branding, it's how are you showing up consistently in an intentional way so that you do stand out, so that your gifts do come to the surface and people recognize those. Because when we can show up with that consistent message, it shows the snowflake, the unique pattern, the unique positioning of us. When we can do that consistently, that's when we grow a groundswell of momentum, when we attract opportunities, because suddenly we're not playing by the rules that our competitors or near competitors are playing with. We're not getting competitive and doing things out of stress or masculinity that might not feel aligned for us. We're doing the things that feel truly unique to us, and that's what people are attracted to. The analogy I use when I teach branding too is that if you were a cereal box and you were looking at all the other cereal boxes to see what should we look like when we land on the shelf, you would end up looking like all of them. Subconsciously, you're going to pick up cues from all those. You might still try to make something unique, but ultimately, you're going to get lost in the row of others that look like that. So, what I teach is with branding, how do you draw inspiration from outside of the category that you're playing in? So, when I did this, first you have to get really real in what makes you different. And for me, yes, it was my business background. I went to business school at the University of San Francisco. I spent 14 years in brand and marketing, in corporate, startup life, agency. I had all these different environments where I really learned the flexibility of business and business rules and principles, etc. And I was in marketing for the majority of those. So I've done well over my 10,000 hours in brand and marketing. But I also have this spiritual side and this side that understands, hey, emotions and creativity and femininity is just as important as all of these other things, like systems and numbers, learning and iterating what you're doing. All of these things that are the more masculine side of business. I learned that combining them is not only what feels really good, but it is what helps us grow from a sustainable, energetically rich place. We don't get burnt out. We don't fall into the too masculine side where we forget about our intuition and creative urges that might actually just bring us the most growth. But we're also not falling into the super feminine side where there's no systems or structure and no scaffolding to support our ideas and our creative urges. And yes, I do have this spiritual side where I am intuitively tapped in and I pull oracle cards every morning and I have crystals and I meditate and I do all these things because they help me stay anchored as an entrepreneur. They help me generate the ideas needed to move forward. They allow me to connect with clients in a genuine, transformational way. So I got clear on all that stuff. And then I looked for inspiration from areas of my life that felt like there was some sort of relevant piece, but it wasn't out of complete left field. For instance, interior design, I love. I love learning about interior design. And I love that when you start a project, it always begins with how do you want to feel in this room? And that is a question that is very similar to the questions that I use with clients when we first start a journey together. It's like, how do you ultimately want to feel in your role as an entrepreneur, whatever you're doing? Because that is where we want to move towards. That's our true north. And then, of course, with interior design, you're choosing colors and textures, and it's this big puzzle until you get this room or this home that feels like you, but also has this energy to it. And in a lot of ways, that's similar to coaching. So I took a lot of inspiration from interior design and architecture, even archaeology, when I was looking at inspiration for my brand. I want to pause and just let's observe what's happening here, right? Number one, I looked at what made me different. Number two, I understood that message. Okay, it's this intersection of business and spirituality. Number three, I looked for inspiration outside of my brand and I brought it in. And there was some sort of relevant piece. It wasn't like, I like Cracker Jacks, so let's do something with Cracker Jack look and feel in my brand. No, there was a deeper piece, a deeper connection. And ultimately, I worked with a brand designer around this strategy, these three key components, to bring it to life, right? But there was very clear vision and direction from me when working with her, so I could direct her. And then we could use her creative magic to see, okay, how does this translate into color? How does this translate into font choices? Right? That's the branding process. I think most people don't actually realize that because, again, we fall into comparison. So we end up choosing things that end up looking like things we've already seen. And I think the beautiful part of this work and getting out of the comparison trap is that we have the opportunity to create something truly unique that feels like us and that communicates that both through words, through visuals, and through everything that we share. So coming back to that comparison piece again, if you find yourself looking at people who are in your same industry or getting competitive or feeling some of these emotions, maybe feeling even a little scared to really stake your flag in the ground, right? Come back to yourself for a moment. Even put like your hands on your heart, feel your body, move your body, get outside, and think back to all the times that you've received feedback about you personally. What makes you unique, right? There's a gift there. And when we can get really clear on what that gift is and then how to present it to the world in a consistent manner, all of a sudden, all our goals, how we want to feel in our role, the opportunities that we want to attract, those appear. They're directly connected. But for those opportunities to appear, we need to let go of comparison. And so, one of the most beautiful journeys to do this is to actually go through branding work. And I know branding, when you hear the word, might feel so rigid and not spiritual and not emotional. But I actually find that branding is one of the most creative, beautiful self awareness journeys that you can go on because it is the moment of transformation. It is the moment of saying, no, this is me. This is what makes me unique, and I'm putting it out there. And I see it time and time and again. When we finally do that, when we finally let go of comparison, that's when we achieve our goals. So if you're feeling the nudge of like, I want to do this work, but I need a little structure, I need a little accountability to make this happen, because these 3 steps feel a lot on their own, I have created something to help you. My signature program, the Brand Edit, is now available in a self-paced version. And what this program is it leads you step by step through this process. So we start with, what is that big vision? How do you want to feel in the room? What is that room that you're stepping into? We get clear on your mission. What is that one statement, that flag that you're really trying to plant in the ground, right? Why do you exist? And yeah, I know that's a big question, but it's important and it's part of this journey. Then we look at what makes you different. What are the pieces of you that you can start to bring in that you love, that you feel connected to, that are going to help you stand out? We get clear on your positioning, which is, why are you different? And there's so many different tools and prompts and exercises to help you understand that. Then we build on that, on the visual piece. And so you go through this creative exploration of saying, yeah, what is the look and feel of what you're sharing so that it feels like you, so that it represents your unique aesthetic and personality, and so that you don't fall into that comparison trap. And finally, there are trainings on color palette, on fonts, even on magnetic messaging, so that all of this expands into your business naturally. And then you have 2 paths at the end. A lot of people DIY their brand. So they take everything that we discover in the Brand Edit and they're able to implement and rock it off. So I've had Nikki Corbett, she's a podcast host. She went through the Brand Edit last June, about a month after she graduated. She had a rebranded podcast she launched, and she had over 1,000 downloads in her first month, even though she had all new social accounts and started everything from scratch. I've had other clients who, the Matriarchy Biz, it's a partnership. They went through the Brand Edit. They did not rebrand, but they did include different brand elements. They tweaked a little bit of their visuals, but just simply getting clear on their positioning, their messaging, and what made them different, their leads and their clients exploded. And they suddenly had more clients than they knew what to do with. And suddenly they had to move through the challenge of, how do we continue to scale with the amount of leads and stuff that are coming in? I've had people go through the program who are coaches who needed to spin up a website, who knew they wanted to rebrand. Some people who actually just wanted to get really clear on their positioning. And so all of these stories, the Brand Edit works. It's from 14 years worth of brand and marketing. And these transformations that I've seen for companies who are corporations, who are startup companies in tech, all the way to solopreneurs, people who are just starting something out, or people who have had some traction for a few years, but know that they're ready for a pivot. They're ready for something new. So the Brand Edit is now available to you in a self-paced version, meaning you get everything in the program. You get all the workshops. You get the bonus trainings from myself and from guests. You get the tools, the resources, the step-by-step worksheets that allow you to finally arrive at this place, knowing what makes you different, knowing how to communicate it, and doing so in a consistent way so that your people can finally see you. So I will drop the link to that in the show notes. Again, you can start it anytime on your own. If you ever want one-on-one support, you can always add a discounted one-on-one with me on top of the experience to workshop anything live. But I have seen people go through this program, the self-paced version, completely on their own and absolutely crush it. They come out knowing what makes them different. They see the opportunities come up. They see the real growth that happens. And the testimonials themselves, I encourage you to check out. They truly reflect the magic of this program and the way that it's designed. Link to the Brand Edit Self Pace is in the show notes. You can start anytime. It's designed to be done in 4 weeks really easily so that there's one workshop you listen to a week, and then templates and resources, and then bonus trainings if you want to dive into those. But of course, you have access to the program after you purchase, as long as the program is live, which is many, many years in the future as of right now. So enjoy. If you have any questions, please DM me. I am your host, Samantha Fackler. I hope that at the end of this episode, you feel like you can step away from any sort of comparison tendencies that might be coming up and step towards that unique path that is yours. Because I promise you it exists, it's waiting for you, and it's worth it. Thank you for being here. Again, subscribe to the show if you're new here. Share it with a friend if they might be falling into the comparison trap. And I will see you next time.